Hi, everybody. Here in Windsor and Essex County, it is September. It is the changing of the season. It is back to school season. And my name is Arms Bumanlag. Happy to have you here for episode 36, season 2 of the Arms Bumanlag project in full swing. Hard to believe it's September 2022 already. Hopefully, you had a pretty good back to school season, a back to routine for a lot of folks here in the region. And I saw the school buses back on the roads today, out and about. So that's always good to see. And weird summer, I think, overall for a lot of folks. I know for our family, it was really busy. We actually sat on our patio for the first time, I think, in a month and a half this past weekend. Saturday was the nicer day out of like Sunday. Monday was kind of rainy in Windsor, Essex, at least in our neck of the woods in Amherstburg. But we actually sat on the patio. Now that we have the two kids, Liam and Olivia, it's always a challenge to kind of just take a minute to be a little bit more mindful. And I think that's what we missed the most. I mean, it's been so busy and we're not complaining. It's just been a very busy summer. So, and I was talking to a lot of people, and they sort of feel the same way. It's been like a really busy summer of different commitments and different things. So, I thought we would kick off this month on the project talking to somebody who I just think is just absolutely incredible at what she does. Had a chance to work with her a number of years ago on a number of different type of social media enterprises. She was born and raised here in the Rose City. She's been a certified teacher for over 23 years. Very as learners. She's pursued many avenues towards information and training in regards to how students learn, what kind of obstacles can students have to learning for young kids, and how to overcome those particular obstacles. And one of those particular avenues has been the imparting of mindfulness skills to students and really adults of all ages, how we can be more mindful in our everyday life. She's a practitioner of mindfulness since her early teens, been using those various skills as sort of um, an anchor into the present moments with curiosity and connection to self, calm, and a firm belief in the whole person as unlimited potential. She's created a center dedicated to the pursuit of support, mindful learning, and exemplary instruction. She's the head of the Class Education Center. Happy to welcome my friend Julie Fader to the Arms Movement Light Project. Julie, always good to see you. How are you, my friend?
I'm well, Arms. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining me virtually today. Big day for a lot of folks in Windsor, Essex. It's been a slice since we and I have had a conversation since everything
Yes.
sort of turned upside down with COVID. I want to get to some of the pivots you've made with your particular education center over the last couple of years. But my gosh, it's like back to school season already, and can be parents and a lot of kids maybe starting a new grade, going to school for the first time, making that jump into post secondary too. What kind of tips, what kind of advice can you give to parents and students who are kind of navigating the new norm as they head into a new school year?
Well, I think this was like the greatest day you could have had me come on. It was because I've been talking about this for about 4 weeks on our Facebook page because this is a really important day and it's a really important time of year. And particularly with what we've been going through for the last couple of years, it's a really big day for kids. Traditionally, it is, but we have a lot of kids right now who really are struggling in school and with the challenge of returning to a routine. Because what does the routine actually mean for us right now? We know that for the last couple of years, routine has gone out the window. So that sense of sort of safety and security that we absolutely as humans need to learn has kind of been pulled out from under our kiddos. So my biggest message in the last few weeks has been to really get the message to our kids that they are safe, that they are secure, and that everything is going to work out. And we just keep bringing this message to them that our unshakable belief in that. And then there's other things that we can do as well. But one of the things that I read a really cool thing. I used to do this with my own son, who's, like, I can't believe your Liam is starting school.
Oh my
That's
God, yes.
crazy. Like, when is he starting?
Actually, he starts next Monday.
Whoa. Whoa.
Week this week where he's still in daycare. Like we struggled, and I've said it on the show many times, Julie, like, when COVID happened with Liam's immunocompromised
Yeah.
health, with his heart complications. We had them in the early on years,
Yeah.
like February of 2020, and then the world ends in March 2020. So we were really sheltered in place with him. And Carrie worked as a pharmacy technician, so we really took our precautions. But on the flip side of the coin, it's like we outside of our fears because of COVID and everything else, he thrived and he just loves going, and he's made great friends. He loves his teachers. And now we're at this point where we've got a few days left, and it's very sad for us, I think, as parents. I know
Yeah.
I'm going to be a mess on Monday, and I know Carrie is
Yeah.
too, but I know
Yeah.
for Liam, he's been saying to me the last couple of weeks, Julie, he's like, "Is it September yet?" I'm like, "Well, no, not
Mm.
yet." And then he says, out of the blue, he's like, "Oh, well, am I going to the big kids school?" And we're putting him in Anderton here in Amherstburg, and he's the teachers have been great so far there too. But it is
Awesome.
like a huge shift, right, for kids, especially at 4.5 years old, to say all my teachers and in my nap time I get to take during the day and all that kind of stuff ends because
Yeah, and the thing is that I really think that we can't underestimate nor disrespect the change. Disrespect the stress that change, whether it's good or perceived as negative, can have on us. And so I think that as families, if we really, really understand the impact that a change can have, it's going to impact you and Carrie, it's impacting Liam, and this is a change. So we just really, really understand that. And then we kind of just really watch, like in mindfulness, we talk all the time about noticing. So we're really going to notice if there's any changes in Liam, or if he's feeling stressed on, in the days after, which will be totally normal and natural for him to feel in the days after the first couple of days of school, and just understanding that that's probably not the time to bring him to the dentist for a filling, or that's probably not the time to introduce a lot of different extracurriculars, because what we know is that we have a specific amount of cognitive energy. We have, as humans, we have just an amount of cognitive energy that we are able to sort of manage our day. And what a meltdown is actually defined as is the situation overcoming our ability to manage it, or our cognitive energy. So if it could be the old saying, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Mhm.
So this is one of the things that we talk to parents about all the time, is as we really want to respect this change, we really want to respect the impact that starting school again has on our kids and has on us, because it's a different routine for families, as the whole family. But then we want to make sure that we are limiting other things that could impact them at the same time. So we want to just keep things kind of low key. We want to give them opportunities to recharge. This is kids from littles like Liam all the way up to high school and post-secondary students. Anyone that's beginning something new like this, where there are going to be cognitive demands made of them during the day, not just cognitive, but also social demands made of them during the day. We have to really respect that and allow for them to express that and to recharge from it. And what does that look like, expressing it? Well, sometimes what that looks like is they let it all hang out for mom and dad when they come home. So they're fine all day at school, but they hit the car or they hit the van, and then they're just like, that was terrible. And and so and this happens all the time. I talked to, and it's been 29 years this September since I entered the Faculty of Education. And in all those years, I have heard from thousands of families that have said to me, they're fine all day at school, but they come home and they're just having such a tough time. And what I want to say to families, and what I have said to families, is that is because they have reached their limit. They have reached their limit. And so instead of, if we reframe that, Stuart Shanker always talks about reframing. If we reframe what we're thinking about what's happening in the car when they're like having their meltdown, and
Sure.
seeing that as they're unable to manage at this moment, rather than this kid's being a pain in my butt when they come home from school, it's a really, really uplifting thing for them, because it can help them move forward. So that is a huge piece of advice for families as their kiddos are transitioning. There was a bunch of stuff we talked about, help them get back into routine and things like that. But now they're here. So now, and I remember my own kid. So Dane's 25 now, which I am, because for me, Arms, Dane is 5. Like that is just, and
Just like
I remember when he was going to kindergarten and the tears that I shed, like, I can't believe he's going. I remember it very well. So it was a huge change for all of us. But with my own child, I remember the impact that just those first few days had, because it was completely different. And he was exhausted when he came home. And sometimes it's so great if you can just give them some recharge time, give them some downtime, respect the impact of this change. That's what I say to families.
it's it's funny you should say that too, because they do when you get your kids enrolled in school now. I know for the Greater Essex County District School Board, they do, like, we went to a couple of meet and greets, and we actually toured his school, which was great. He got to meet some of his teachers, and it was neat. But I think it's like the small things too. I joke around, like every time I take a picture of Liam and I post something, he's always wearing his Spider-Man hat. It's like his, like, Linus's blanket from Peanuts, right? Like he's always wearing it, and they let him wear it at daycare. That's not going to happen when you're in big kid school, right? So we've been trying to, like, wean him off to say, like, hey, and he says, well, why? Like, he doesn't understand, right? And then, at daycare, like, the teachers kind of make sure he eats. He's a very finicky eater. Now I
Yeah,
don't. That's not going to necessarily happen at big kid school, right? So it's
yeah,
it's a big change for a lot of parents and kids. And my God, like, for us too, it's since we've had Olivia in April, it's been very, very busy, but a very blessed busy. But
yeah.
I said to Carrie, I go, come next Monday, it's going to be like, okay, like, it's a little bit quieter around here now, just even for the whole day, because he's going for full days, right? So
Yeah. And here's the cool thing about that too, is that in the province of Ontario, our kids don't have to legally be in school until age of 7. So, so there's a lot of things that we can do. I've talked to families before that if there are any issues with our kiddos adjusting, if there are any things going on, sometimes you can go half days. There's lots of options, is what I want to say, particularly to parents whose kids are in JK and SK, but there's tons of options that are available to you if your little one is really having trouble with adjusting. And my the usual sort of recipe that I see when kids are having trouble is, if in about 2 weeks' time, if they're really still having a difficult time separating, that is probably a time to take another look, just to take another look and see what are some things that we can put, what are some supports we can put into place. Here's the thing. These are dynamic and fantastic teachers. The JKSK level, they are used to this kind of thing. And I think that if you talk to them about, like when I was teaching those grade levels, if a parent talked to me about, can you keep an extra eye while they're eating? We just want to make sure, I absolutely can. You can do that, and if the hat is a really big issue for him, you can talk to the teacher as well and see what you can work out. There's not a lot of cut and dried things. A lot of times as new parents going into the system, we think, okay, but there's so much leeway, especially if you are able to communicate it to your child's teacher. And what I used to do, my Dane, and he's okay with me talking about this, but Dane was always very anxious about starting school.
sure.
He's cut from the same cloth as his mom. So he was very anxious about starting school. So every year, until he was about grade 6, I was so lucky because I was able to take him the Friday before Labor Day, let him meet his teacher, let him see where his desk was going to be, because that alleviated a lot of his anxiety. Somebody told me to try that when he was tiny, and I thought, there's no way they're going to let me do that. But they did. They did let me come in. His school was fantastic, and they let me come in, and he went in, and that set him free for the weekend, like for the weekend before school started. So just little things like that. Like there's a not a lot of things are really cut and dried in the school system. Like some things are, like grades and things like that. But in terms of supporting kids, particularly in the climate that we are in right now, where a lot of kids are struggling because the post-pandemic situations,
Mhm.
there's a lot of leeway and a lot of compassion for some of the things that the kids are going through. So always ask. I used to say to the parents of my students, teach me about your child, because parents are the experts on their kids. And that's what I say to every parent that walks in my door. Tell me everything about your kiddo because you are the expert. And I'm going to play catch up a little bit. And so parents are the experts on their kiddos, and there's so much light that you could shed for your teacher at different times. You don't want to be telling her stuff in the schoolyard when she's trying to run around after all the kiddos. But if there's
Sure.
something that you really need to share with them, if you're really experiencing something, like if there is a kid that's having some separation anxiety and they're really struggling at night, or you're having trouble getting them there, if they are like flat out in school refusal and you have to basically drag them to school, this is stuff that the school can help us with. There's all kinds of things that can happen. So I just want parents to know they're not alone. You're not alone. There are people that can help. There are supports that can be found there, particularly in that transition. But you'd be amazed at how many, just going into any grade, that transition can be enough to put kids into that kind of anxiety.
So what I mean, and thank you so much for spending time with me tonight. I think this is a very topical and very timely, I guess, realm of information to jump into. That whole segue though from grade school, grade 8, going into post secondary, or sorry, secondary school, going into high school. I go back to my own experiences. Even my
Hmm.
wife and I kind of trading notes. I mean, we didn't go to the same high school, but I had a hard time going from grade school to high school, and that's
Yeah.
also a whole different kind of social construct
Yeah.
on the student. What advice can you give to parents who have those kids who are making that leap or have made that leap from grade 8 to grade 9?
Well, I think that there's so much to be said for that particular age group. So we know that a lot of times we just think that, okay, let them go on their own, they'll be fine, they can do it. And there is a percentage of kids that can handle that beautifully. There are kids that just like, I'm fine, no problems at all. But what parents don't realize is it's the same as when they're entering JK and SK. There are supports to be had. So if your child is struggling, if they are suffering, if they're experiencing challenges those first few weeks of school, you can call and speak to someone at the school, perhaps your child's guidance counselor. You can just call the office. If it's a grade 9 student, you are new to the school also. So you can call and you can just say, this is what we're experiencing. And there are people that can help, because I always think that it takes a village. And I was so lucky because my child, when he needed something, there was always somebody I could call, and they would say, Mrs. Fader, we're going to help you with that. We're going to help Dane with that. And then it was so wonderful because it was a support system. We're putting our kids in that school. We can't help them. We're at home or at work. They are there. And, we're like, oh my gosh, how's that going? But we know that there's someone there that can absolutely help. So the message is the same for those parents. If your child is experiencing something, if you are worried about something, get in touch with the school. That is what they are there for. And usually the incredible administrators that answer the phones can direct your call to the person that can help. There's always help to be had.
Julie Fader is my guest from Head of the Class. Amazing lady, fantastic educator, great facility to educational career, and talking about mindfulness too, which I want to dive into. And shout out to you. I know we were talking just before we went live about listening to last week's guest, which is up, and all my episodes are up. I think we're like at 80 something so far over the last year and a couple months, all up on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube for people to check out, or on Facebook Watch as well. I had mayoral candidate and city councilor Chris Holt on, And one of the things I wanted to talk to Chris about last week is, talking about sort of that political climate and sort of having that even ground to connect with people. And we were kind of joking around. Some people had made comments about how politics is here in 2022 versus how it was even in 2012 versus 2002 versus 1992, and how social media kind of plays into that with armchair critics and whatnot.
Yeah.
I wanted to get your take on that, and how you felt specifically with that whole, I guess, reaching across the aisle
Mhm.
methodology Chris had, which I thought was very refreshing to hear from somebody who's running for an elected office. Is instead of creating divisiveness, they're saying, okay, let's try to find some common ground. And I think that's a lot of that has to come down to, I, I guess, the parents too, right? Is teaching our kids or even learning ourselves how to sort of see somebody's point of view from their point of view and meeting them that sort of safe space.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so happy to be able to speak about that, because when I was listening to that, I thought, I mentioned to you just before that um, it's said that the family is the basic unit of society. And within the family is the individual, who is the basic unit of society. And some of the things that, when we're talking about how we aspire to reach across the aisle and aspire to collaborate, that should actually be the norm. That should be the norm in terms of building communities, in terms of building a culture, in terms of building our kids. That should be the norm. And so what happens, and why do we not do that? Well, that's one of those skills that for a lot of people, we need to be taught. We need to be taught how to collaborate. And a lot of times, we have a society right now that is not necessarily doing that. We're not teaching our kids how to collaborate together, because those skills, there's a really cool, his name is Dr. Ross Green. Many years ago, I was lucky enough to go and do at Harvard University. It was like a summer thingy, and it was called collaborative problem solving. And it was talking about how any problem that kids come up with, and his bent is more like explosive kids, like kids who are really experiencing sort of social emotional challenges and things like that. But he was saying any kid can be taught how to do this, and there was many steps to do it, but the biggest one was empathy, the ability to empathize with the person that you are working with, the ability to have empathy for that person. And I was thinking about what Chris was saying, and I'm like, so where is the empathy? That's what we need to build in our kiddos. And empathy is taught. Empathy is taught by families, by parents, by teachers, by society at large. And so I think that, mindfulness is a tool that I have used, like, as you said, since I was a very little girl, because, well, I was about 13 when I was started to be taught mindfulness, because, and part of the reason that head of the class is that I have this labor of love and this passion and purpose, is because I experienced tremendous difficulties in school, and just tremendous difficulties in school. So I had some identifications, and I had, they said like ADHD and things like that, but that wasn't found out until a little bit later. So it really made things difficult, and it created a lot of anxiety and things like that. And one of the things that I used and was taught to me as a tool to help me move forward was this mindfulness idea. And the really great thing about mindfulness is that it lends itself to this collaboration so beautifully, because what it's asking you to do is, in the moment, in the single moment that we are in, which is the only thing we actually have. We are here. This is what we have right now, this moment. And it's just like, if you have that moment and you observe what's going on with curiosity and kindness, so that when you take that moment, when you truly look into the eyes of the person that you are talking to, and you truly try to hear them and try to be there as human beings can do, it is amazing. It is amazing what can be accomplished. And I see this on a micro level every single day, because with the work that I do with with parents and with the work that I do with kids. You know, sometimes I have kids that come in that have kind of run the gamut of what's happening at school. They've had suspensions. They've had a lot of difficulties. And so they bring it all on for me. It's just like they want to shock me, and so they'll say the most hilarious things like, I'm trying not to, but they're trying to shock me, and
Sure,
nothing
sure.
shocks me, nothing shocks. I've had kids burp the alphabet at me. It's fine. And I always say, and that's, and I always say to the parents, they're, let them be who they are. Please don't give a moment's thought to how they might present themselves when they come in. We honor everyone right where they are. And so when they come in and they try to shock me and things like that, as soon as they figure out that I'm really listening to them and I'm really hearing them, as soon as we do that for each other, it doesn't even have to be with a child, it changes the conversation. It absolutely changes the conversation, because when you are relating to another human being as a human being, and not as an agenda or not as a thorn in your side, or is when you are really relating to that person, that's when amazing things can happen. And that's what will move us forward as a community, as a school, as a culture. So I firmly believe in using the ideas of mindfulness to help kids become that basic building block of society, and then just allow that to grow. We've gotten away from it a little bit,
Oh, for sure,
you know.
for sure. Yeah, and I think I agree with you, and I think it's so prevalent now in 2022. Now that I was reading an article about, I think it was the Washington Post had one out about sort of the rise of attacks on female journalists online with these trolls, these people online using encrypted email servers to uh, berate and belittle female journalists in the United States and in Canada. And I think about why. So I mean, social media for me has been a godsend. It has been a tool that has sort of expedited. I mean, look at this. I mean, we can do these kind of
Yeah,
quick interviews, you at your location, me at my home office studio, and 2 minutes later I can go upstairs and check the kids. Like, it's
yeah,
been a blessing. But I think that's where that digital disconnect comes into play. But people in this article were saying about how people just kind of spew online what they want to spew, and there's
yeah,
no recourse, there's no
yeah,
thinking of that empathy that I think is, like I was saying to Chris last week about just my hot take on elections, and I think that there is a silent majority of people who want to see that collaboration start again. They want to see people sort of reaching across the aisle. They're sort of tired of the politics where it's more identity politics versus just what can we do to serve the people that we're doing, and how can we meet halfway to make politics is that art of compromise. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But I agree with you. I
yeah.
think that starts at home, right? You teach your kids that.
Well, the other thing that's interesting from what you're saying is, so there's these people at home and they're spewing all this, just this ugliness. So where is that coming from?
Hmm.
So my thing is always, let's get to the heart of it. And we know that people sort of spew that kind of ugliness when they're feeling ugly, when they're feeling disconnected. Like when you are feeling connected, you don't, that is not something that you do. If you are feeling like you belong, if you are feeling loved, there is not the need to bring someone else down. So my feeling always is, and what I'm always doing is I'm like, what's the why? Why is that happening? And what are some things that we can put in place at a societal level that can start to help with that, and raise the voices of the people that want to make the changes, but something happened for that person to sit behind a screen and
Hmm.
spew all of that ugliness, and so, and, who knows, is it trauma? We don't know. Is it just, have they been, sort of in their environment, they've just learned this, but these are learned behaviors that come from pain. And I always think there's two choices we have. There's love or fear. So if we can teach our kids to come from this place, and we get them, like, I'm so excited always when we get little kids, because it's time we can give them all of this love. We know that research tells us that that children do not learn effectively, or if at all, I would say, unless they feel connected to the person that is trying to teach them. So, and if it's a really bad situation, they learn, but not the things that we need them to learn as a society that's trying to move forward. So our kids need a sense of connection. They need a sense of belonging. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all of those things. They need to have nutrition. But they need to have a sense of connection and nurturing. So, and that starts right from the time that they're infants in arms, all the way. I think we all kind of need it. What's the research about? People need like 6 hugs a day, and that if somebody feels lonely, they are 25% more likely to have autoimmune disease.
Wow.
Like, we can't underestimate sort of that connection. And so I think it's really, really important to also consider, why is this ugliness here? Because if it was, the social media certainly is a vehicle. It's easier, but I think that it might have, it was just sort of underlying. And then why are people, I'm seeing so much now, because we're sort of post-pandemic-y, like, I think we might
Sure.
be, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm seeing a lot of sort of what I'm calling like post-pandemic propulsion. Like, people, I think, when everything sort of shut down and got really, really quiet, I think you mentioned it, that it really started to have you think about your life a little bit, and did a paradigm shift and start to think about things that are important. And
Oh,
I
for
think
sure.
it gave us the second to do that. It gave everybody a second to take a breath. And I think there's a large number of people out there that realized they were not really satisfied with how things were going for them. And so there's this positive movement, there's this positive energy that you can really see. And I think that if we can create more connection, and if we can teach people, we talk all the time about sort of, there's a stimulus and then there's a reaction. So the stimulus and then reaction. And what we talk a little bit about is, we're the only animals on the planet that can kind of press a pause button in the middle of that. And so instead of reacting, we respond. We respond to it, and we can decide how we want to respond. And I feel like for some of those people who are experiencing that disconnect and that feelings of ugliness that they're spewing into the world, these are the kinds of things that we can help them with. There is not a single person on this planet that is a lost cause. Like, it's the same way as I feel about all the kids that come in. It's like, I have this unbelievable, unshakable belief in every single kid that comes in, their unlimited potential. Like, there is no way that somebody, they have like different tests and things like that. And I have seen kids, because they believe it. Do you know, Arms, what the number one, it's like the number one, for like self-concept,
Sure.
is the number one predictor of future success for
Hmm.
students. So how they feel about themselves as a learner, as a person, how effective they feel in the world, that it outweighs IQ. It outweighs any kind of different wisdoms or abilities, and it outweighs socioeconomic status.
Wow.
So if you think about that, think about the power of that. So when we're talking to the Chris Holtz and things like that, that's what they need to know, because this intense human potential that we have in this incredible city, I love Windsor, Essex, and I have seen incredible things here. And as a person who has a business, who's survived the pandemic, through lots of different kinds of shifting and pivoting, because we are an
Sure.
in-person center, so we had a lot of times we couldn't be in person, but we see tremendous, tremendous uptake because of the spirit of the people that live in this community. I have so much faith that we can begin again to have that reaching across the aisle ideology, because as a community, isn't that what we want? Isn't it what we want to work together? That's what community comes from, communion, that, we want to work together. And it all starts with kids. It all starts with kids. So I feel really honored to have the opportunity to work with them.
Well, I have the if I guess I'm honored to talk to you once again. It's just always an absolute pleasure to talk to you and learn from you. If people want to get more information on head of the class and a little bit more about what you do and how you help kids and families, how do we get a hold of you, Julie?
Oh, well, they can go to our website. It's headoftheclasseducation.com. And they can, over on Facebook as well, they can see us on Facebook, they can see us on Instagram. We have all those social things, and thank God somebody else does that, because I'm really learning, but I also know that there's some things that people are much better at than I am. And so they can look at our Facebook page for sure. And we're super happy to assist if anybody's needing anything. And thank you very much for the opportunity. It was so nice talking with you.
Absolutely, you too. And it's always good to connect with the class. What an amazing lady, great educator, and just cares about the kids and cares about that mindfulness perspective too, which I think is so crucial. She referenced Chris Holt on the show, and I'm going to say that again. I listen. I'm on social media more than most people. You talk to my wife Carrie; she'll tell you like half the time she, "Arms, put down your phone." You're on, and I'm trying to be a little bit more mindful of that. But it's like the old news guy in me, right? Is like I there's such a shift in the way people are consuming media, and it's so fragmented, but the content that is getting put out there, listen, I'm not saying bury your head in the sand when it's off. It happens every single day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But at some point, and I've said this from day one on this show, in 10 to 15 to 20 years, there will be some sort of study or studies where people will say, what was the effect of the constant negative news cycle on the psyche of people who had to stay informed? It's okay to address those things. And I think we should. And we should have that sort of enterprise journalism and investigative journalism, and those expose some very negative things sometimes. That's what it's for. But if you consistently feed yourself that diet and discount the good, because there is still good happening in the world, I think that's a big part of the problem. I think that's why people are so polarized. People are constantly being fed negative, negative, negative. And that's why I said on this show, whether I have 7 viewers or whether I have 7,000 viewers, cumulatively speaking, of course, I'm going to try to focus on some good stuff here on the show and still the hard questions, have my guests on the program, have that sort of warmth with most of my guests. I would say all of my guests, because I've worked with so many of them through my years working here in the city. And I agree with Julie 150%. I think the city is, the region is because of the people, because of the projects that are on the way, because of the location that we're at, because of Windsor being what it is. And I am hedging my bets in the next 10 years that this area is just going to explode with economic and personal opportunity for families starting here from coming abroad, and folks who were born and raised, like Julie and myself, both born and raised here in Windsor. So I've gone through the motions. I mean, I was born in the 80s. I know what Windsor's gone through, and what possibly could lie ahead for us as well. So always good to talk to Julie. She's such a lovely lady, very bubbly. And a big shout out to our sponsors here on this season of the show, Jason and the team at Motor City Chrysler, located right at the intersection of Walker and Tecumseh Road. Fantastic people. If you're looking for a new car, a used vehicle, check them out today. They got a number of great specials, and they are invested in the community. Big sponsors of a number of charitable aspects, including our Humane Society golf tournament coming up in just a few weeks' time here in Essex County. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we go next week. Next Monday is the big day for our household, anyways. Liam's going to school for the first time. So, I don't know. I mean, I do know. I said to somebody today when I was talking about it, we really struggled again to put him into daycare, but he's thriving. But I never thought that I would have the opportunity to bring my kid to junior kindergarten, let we were in the thick of things at Sick Kids back in 2018. So it's a blessing. And now we got another one too. We got Olivia, my little peanut. She's coming up on almost 5 months old now. So she's a little bundle of joy keeping us busy too. So to all the parents, to all the kids, you made it through the first day. Now you just got to get through the rest of the year into next summer of 2023. So God bless you and good luck to you. Hey, don't forget that we are podcasting this on Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on Spotify as well, or Anchor. To Jeff Burrows, to Danny Probert, to Bill Mara. Oh my gosh, Luke Michaud. You name it, we've had him on the show, talking all things Windsor Essex and a little bit of positivity mixed in there too. So find them on YouTube too. If you'd like to see the people that are talking, you can see the video podcasts. They're up on my YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe today. Okay, folks, have a great rest of the evening. We will see you back next week. We are talking to some of the fine folks at the Bulimia Anorexia Nervosa Association and the Rotary Club of Windsor 1918. After a 2-year hiatus, Children's Fest is back at center of that particular event. Always a good time. Looking forward to bringing Liam out to check that out. That'll be coming up next weekend here in Windsor, Essex. And we'll have a little bit more details on Rotary 1918 and the concept of Children's Fest next week, Tuesday nights live here on the Arms Bumanlag project. So until then, take care, stay safe, and thanks for watching.